CIPS Saskatchewan, and I'm the executive director. And this morning joining us is Doug Lawrence, who's hosting our conference call this morning, and Doug is a board member. And we also have Kim on the line, and Kim is another board member, and she's in charge of the students. And the mentorship program, so Doug is also in charge of the mentorship program, so the two of them are on that committee. And we have Yashu Bitter on the phone, who is, so Yashu, what committee do you sit on?
Thanks, Maria. I chair the Professional Conduct Committee.
Thank you. My apology for not knowing that right off the bat. It's only been
That's okay, it's Friday.
Anyways, thank you all for joining us this morning, and we're happy to host this for you. And Yashu's going to start the presentation with his section.
Sure. Okay, so do you want me to share my screen? Okay, let me know if everybody can see my screen now.
Yeah. There's your calendar.
Yeah. There we go. Okay, well, I will dive right into this. Like, what would be one of the approaches to apply for positions in Saskatchewan or in Canada as well? And it's very important that the candidate who is applying for a position look at the job competencies of any position. So, I mean, I can pick any one of these ones. This is right from the CIPS Saskatchewan IT or the job board that we call. But you can go to any website. Like there's other websites that we have in Saskatchewan. So saskjobs.ca is a good one. So for example, I'm targeting some in Regina, or I may be looking at a different category depending on what I'm really after. So it's very important for you to pay attention, not only just the salary band, but most importantly, the job description itself. And I would highly recommend the candidate to go on the website of the employer, try to look for what employer is offering, and not just in terms of the salary itself, but also the benefits and the growth opportunities as well. And you may have to, if you're not familiar with the company, I would suggest that you go through their website, try to fetch as much information as you can. And there are various forums these days that are maybe available. You can ask that, or you can ask your friends or family if they have some information about that. So the way I would approach this one is, so let's say, let's pick this one. So this is in Victoria, British Columbia. And so it tells me that they are looking for a business analyst in the application services area. It's a temporary position for a 12-month contract. Now, that's another thing that you may want to consider in your decision-making process, whether you want to apply for it. Canadians take this very, very seriously when somebody applies for a position, and it's important that you look at the qualification and certain things. Sometimes the employers like to put that as a preference. Now that's another thing. The most important thing, not when you're thinking of even applying for a position, you not necessarily just want to focus on how I can relate to this position. Can I fulfill all the requirements? But also, what is so different about yourself that can isolate you with the various other candidates or other applicants that may be applying for this? You have to pay very, very close attention to that. And so in this case, so what I would do is I would just start, with the date and time, and simple stuff like the HR department, where it is located, that sort of thing. And then, I would start saying, keeping it generic, that, then I would go back and say, okay, what is the title of this position? I would just go with that. And sometimes certain employers have put in some reference number, and they want you to code that in the application itself. So I would definitely start with that. And then the way I have approached it in my career, that I would make this as a tabular like this. You have to understand the other thing that, like, for example, when I do the hiring, I get several resumes. Do you think that I have time to go through each one of them in that detail? No, the answer is no, because that's what it happens. And sometime in North American landscape, the HR department does the initial cutoff of the candidates based on they use some sort of automated algorithm, and they are looking for certain keywords. So in this case, for example, the qualification, I would start with that. And then I would so I would just make a 2-column, your requirements and my qualifications or skills. In this case, I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger font so that everybody can see it. So in this case, and you can get this idea. This is just one example. So you may say that I have completed a 4-year bachelor's program in computer science. And pay close attention to the spell check. Employers do hate when candidates do not pay attention to the grammar, as well as they haven't done their homework in terms of doing the spell check. So in a situation like this, you can see that, okay, we as employer were looking for a candidate that has this as a minimum requirement, and this candidate is offering this. In their mental mind, when employer is looking at this candidate or this applicant, they're saying, okay, so he met this requirement, and then what about the other ones? So same way, I would just take this, literally you're copying and pasting here. But keep that in mind that you are supposed to provide as much information as you can. I would not worry too much about, and the other thing is that people try to make it so tempting for the employer that sometimes they even go to the verge of lying, and this is a bad idea. I won't recommend that. I would say that be very professional. In my career, some of the advice or mentoring I got was that you don't need 10 jobs, you just need 1 job, and you need to be good at that, and keep that in mind that you may be, after you land your first job in your career or whatever stage you are in your career, in Canada, you will use this current position that you may acquire in Canada, or one of the first positions. You will use the references from this position when you are going to apply for the next position. So it's very important. If you did not do a good job, then you may get into trouble for the next position in your career. So it's important that you do a good job, both behaviorally as well as your behavior has to be, it's all comes to the attitude. A lot of the Canadian employers hire you because you may have a better attitude than the other candidate. As we normally say here, I can teach a candidate the new skills, but I cannot teach them the attitude. 99% of your qualification comes from the attitude, and 1% is the aptitude. So it's important that you consider all those things when you're applying for any position in Canada. Now, here I would do the same thing. I would just reflect a little bit on it, that where have you obtained this? I have gained more than, and I can fix this later on, some of the formatting here. I've gained more than 5 years of experience in IT operational support role. And here, if you choose so, I may offer a little bit more, detail here, but just so you know, roles, at various organizations, and you may reflect back to some of the employers. Put some employers' names, so may say MNP or KPMG or Sastel, like wherever you have obtained that, and you may also want to add one or two sentences here in relation to this that may provide a little bit more insight, but not too detailed. Try to avoid too many details in here, and that's a way how I would approach here. And same thing. So now you can go through all of this, and some of the areas not necessarily has to be literally like this. You may be able to combine some of that information. Sometimes I also do this. So I put two bullets here together, and then try to combine that. Literally, you don't have to borrow everything. Use this as your guide, your guiding principles, so that you can understand what is exactly they are looking for in this particular qualification. And then use that and say, okay, they are looking for someone who can collaborate between IT and business team, because as the title say, it's a business analyst position, but it's more like it's telling me that a person who can understand both IT and a business process. So that's an important thing to note here. And that's where you can say, so for example, if I was applying for this one, I might say, this is one of the areas where where I bring the most strength for this position. So that's maybe, and the continuous improvement is another one. You're talking about lean here or some of the other Six Sigma or whatever. And then in the preferred area, so you may say that, in this, it is a preference, and you say, I have obtained CBAP certification from IIBA, or I am also CIPS certified member in province of Saskatchewan. And just in case the employer is not fully aware of what this is, because in this case they ask for it, but in case you have a qualification, you may say that the CIPS is the only IT legislated designation in Canada, and this is right on the CIPS national website, and you can obtain that information, and I would just put it right here, and you could say that. So I mean, these are the things that you may have to look for. I mean, in this case, I would also copy and paste this one, and then I would go on their website. So maybe this will do it, I think. So there we go. So I would just do a quick navigation here, and I will look for, okay, who we are, who's this employer, like if I'm not familiar with this one. So I would just read through it. I would just read through their client, and they have further links. I can drill down to the further information. I could also look at who's their executive is and what they're looking for, how big is this company is, and then I could also look into some certain things. Sometimes they see, this is one of the good things to learn about the company is go through their annual report. So you could download that, read through it a little bit, just to get a little bit high level at this stage, so that you understand enough about this company. And because some of the employers, they may be interested in knowing that, what do you know about us? So that's a very important thing to understand, that what they actually done and how much, if they are a traded company, then how much they have gained in the last couple of years, and pay attention to specifically to the last year. So that's how I will approach it. And then, in the end, you may close that. I would be looking forward to having a further discussion if you would choose to have and further detailed discussion about my qualification and what I bring to the table for this particular position. And you may end like that, and show some enthusiasm, and they're looking forward to receiving a response back from you, something like that, so that they can feel that this candidate is very much serious. He or she is is interested in our position or in our company, and those are the things that is important that you put in your cover letter. And in my resume as well, make sure whatever you're saying here is reflected in your resume as well, so that people, when, let's say this is something the employer really likes, and they say, okay, well, this sounds good, so I may have to go into the resume of the person, then make sure that all the information that is reflected here is transpired in your resume as well. And the final thing is that what I will do is I will do a check on making sure that the font is the same, and plus the size is the same. And in some cases, for example, I screwed up over here, so I will make sure that I use Word a lot for this, and change some of these things that and have a quick glance over your. And once this is your good template where you can use this over and over. All you got to do is change this and pay attention to what you're applying for, and change the position number or whatever, and then that will help you quite a bit to. You will see a difference if you've done your homework in terms of knowing that I've done this, I've done that, I know this as well, I know how to. And there are a lot of employers that will throw in, this is a very technical position, it sounds like, but they also look for some soft skills. And that is very, very important. And some of the things is like, okay, you're talking about a little bit about the organizational metrics, but there are employers, excuse me, that you may find that will ask for certain things that may include, and that may isolate you. Like if you, for example, if you've done things like Toastmasters or some public speaking, and so look at here, like in this case, they are looking for someone who can travel, including overnight stay. If that's something will affect you or your family, then this may not be a good position for you. So this is what I was talking about in soft skills. Strong written, verbal, and active listening communication skills and related skills are critical to this assignment. So this is, I mean, if I know this, then I would be reading more than what it says here. It means some of the interpersonal skills. Your communication is very, very important, how you communicate with. And Canadians pay very close attention to how the choice of the words. I know that internationally certain words, they're very different than what we use in Canada. And overall, you have to look at from end to end and try to get as much information so that you show your confidence in your cover letter as well as your resume. These are the two most important documents. The first one is a cover letter. That's very important. That becomes it may land you an interview. So that in that process, so the first step is cover letter, apply. Once you apply, you just wait and watch. And once you applied, depending upon how quickly, so for example, this is closing April 12th. I mean, it closed yesterday. So right now, this employer might be going through the resumes and try to sort it out. Maybe the interviews could be as early as next week. So be ready for that. Make sure you have copies of your resumes. Make sure you have the list of your references, and any documentation can support this. In the interview, I have seen people asking the questions that you say that I was very good in supporting the IT projects and I got this award or this kind of recognition from my employer, my current or previous employer or my customers. So the current employer that who is interviewing you may ask you, is there anybody in your organization can validate that if we choose to do so? And you have to be ready for that. So make sure that whatever you are supplying this information, I won't say that you lie, but I've seen 5 to 10% maybe, but not more than that. If you are exaggerating certain things, then be careful, especially when you're applying for your first job, and even after that, be careful what you say in the interview, because it may bring you back. Because employer may be looking at, oh, this candidate has this, and they may offer you a job, and when you land your job and you start working there, and you turn out that you don't know that stuff. Now that's a lie, because keeping in mind that most of these employers will be hiring you with a 1 year or 6 months probation. And if you did not accomplish what you said in your resume or this position that you were hired for, then you could be in trouble. And that may be ruining your career in Canada, because if your first employer did not like what you did, then you may have a lot of trouble in Canada getting that. So I think that's where I will end, unless people have any questions for me. I will return this back to Maria.
Perfect. Thank you, Yashu. Yes, does anyone have any questions at all, or does the committee have any additional comments on top of what Yashu has done? By the way, Yashu, that was very thorough, and I've seen the table done just one other time, and I think that's extremely effective for an employer when looking at resumes. So thank you for that.
Hi, Yashu and Maria. This is Viral here. Thank you so much, Yashu, for the informative session. I have a question specific to, different job openings in Canada. How important it is to have a Canadian experience which could or cannot influence your impact your candidature for a specific position which is advertised in Canada, considering the fact that the candidate is having, most of the time international experience, including United States.
Well, it does make some difference in certain jobs, and it also depends upon the specific skill set that you may be bringing. And I know that in the world what is happening, and that's where I think you can make a difference to have a CIPS accreditation. That could come really handy, because as I just said, that CIPS is a international qualification, both ISP and especially ITCP, and that's maybe something you want to highlight in their resume, because if you're bringing certain skill set and an employer does not look at your credentials only, as I said, like it is also about your attitude, your communication skills, how you communicate with people, and international candidates sometimes they don't show that passion in your cover letter, because I've seen a lot of candidates applying for a position. You can tell that their intention is to just get a PR, permanent residency in Canada, and their grammar is very poor. They haven't done the spell check. Like in this case, I can tell you that that's a bad word. I know that is. I should have done the proofreading before I have sent that resume or my cover letter. So it's important that you pay to those. You have to be adamant that you're focused with this. You may not get the every interview that you apply for initially, and that could very well be the case. But be adamant, be persistent, and as I said, the one advice I got, at one point I was immigrant too, and you just need one job. If your attitude is that, I will get a job that will allow me to mop the floor today, but is that where I'm going to be ending my career? Absolutely not. I can share some of the personal experience that I have friends in Canada, we are talking about Canadians now. Individual started his career as a janitor and now he's a senior manager, quality manager at one of the largest companies, and he's making really good money and is doing really well right now. So that is not a reflection of your skills or your qualification. It's just how you're going to come into the Canadian landscape. Because as I said, if your attitude was working with McDonald's was that even if you were frying the fries but your attitude was good and your manager stand by with your skills, and he's going to say this candidate was excellent, and one of the good questions would be, would you rehire this individual? If the answer is yes, as a next hiring manager, this will gives me a lot of breathing room to say that I think we got our candidate.
Thank you, Yashu. That was really encouraging. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's okay. I can
Are there any other questions? I have one comment in regards to gaining Canadian experience once you have arrived here in Canada. And all I did was move provinces. But because I moved provinces, I didn't have connections here where I could sort of ask people about jobs or get some leads. So what I did was I started some classes at the local university at nighttime. And that put me into the educational system. It provided me with networking opportunities. So I was able to meet people in my field. And at the same time, I gained some just additional education. And when I went to apply for jobs, my employers here were encouraged with the fact that I was, at school, even though I didn't really need the school. But, additional education is always good. So when you land here, just taking a course at nighttime helps. And other resources here in the province. Once you land here and we know that you're here, we can certainly put you into contact with either a mentor from the CIPS group, so you can seek a mentor here with us, and you can even do that now. Or once you get here, we can put you in touch with any immigrant programs that are here and are complimentary. They're free to new Canadians, and they will be able to help you as well. So there are lots of resources once you land here. But in the meantime, if you do want a mentor, we can certainly match you up with that. And Kim and Doug can certainly help you with it. You can just send us an email and let us know. Kim, Doug, do you want to add anything at all to that?
No, I think from my perspective, you covered it off
Okay, good.
quite nicely. We may want to, if there's any questions that are outside of what we've just finished talking about, if any of the attendees have any additional questions, now would be a good time for us to address those.
Hello. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Yeah, my question is, like I have read, references required for many job openings. So initially we don't have that much references. So I mean, how to get help with this?
So you don't have, you are working, or you have worked and you have reference, like can you get some references from work or none?
No, we are right now at India. When we move there, Canada,
Okay.
we don't have enough reference. They are working in IT.
Okay. So what you can do is you can ask your employer to write you a letter of reference and provide us with an email or a phone number, so that if your employer where you apply for jobs wants to contact them, they can. Does that help?
The other thing to add to that, what just Maria said, so let's say you land in Canada and you're still looking for jobs, and I would not sit at home. I would look for opportunities to volunteer, networking, as Maria was saying earlier. A lot of employers will take your volunteer experience, maybe, and I will try to sell CIPS more, and you may want to volunteer with CIPS, and maybe one of the person on the board can give you a reference depending on how good of a job you have done. So again, to the attitude, if you have the right attitude, you don't have to rush to get a job. The important thing is, are you getting a job that matches to your skill set? Yes, it may be you're running out of patience because you're running out of time, and you don't have the money to support your family or whatever circumstances you're coming with. But come prepared for that. You may not have a job for, let's say, 2 months or 6 months, and depending on how tight that market is. I would suggest that you do a little bit of a research in terms of what skill sets do you have. It's very easy for any candidate to say, oh, Canada doesn't offer me any job. Well, what skill sets do you have? I mean, I will go back to this template that we talked about. You have some of the credentials that employers are generally looking for. If you do, I don't think you should have any trouble. And I would also develop a little bit of my emotional intelligence in terms of the self-awareness and self-assessment that there is always a learning curve here. Like if you did not get this job, you may be able to go back to the same employer and say, thank you very much for having me on the interview, and I would like to get some feedback from you that why I did not get the position that I was interviewed for, and because this may help me in my future, where the skill sets that I need to improve. And some employer may revert back with some information because they are still interested in you, and I would take that as a positive sign.
Excellent. I agree. Yashu, volunteering is an excellent way to get the Canadian experience, and even with CIPS. Are there any other questions for our group this morning? Remember, you can always send us an email. And if I can't answer any particular question, I can always refer to someone who can. And once you know that your immigrant papers have been approved, do get in touch with us by email and let us know. And this way we can make arrangements for when you arrive here in Saskatchewan. So I think if there's no other comments,
oh,
go ahead.
Yeah, hi. So she's currently outside the Canada. So when particular candidate has hard in
I'm afraid we couldn't hear you.
We don't know the as per the process, like it may take like 6 months of time. Okay. So where to start looking in Canada?
We can't hear you. There's some kind of background noise or something. It's preventing us from hearing all the words that you're saying. Do you want to add it to the chat?
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, this is Karthik here.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a question. I'm not particular with this process about how to find job in Canada, but I'm like, right now I'm in India and I applying for immigration to CIPS Saskatchewan.
Okay.
And the process is very slow, and sometimes it's like it takes like. Do you guys have anything like in America? They have the work permit visa called H-1B.
Right.
Is it anything like that in Canada?
I think there is. I will.
Sorry to interrupt you, but the thing is like, I could not see like all the time the employers, like I apply for a job, they're just looking for like, do you have any immigration, like do you have the like permanent resident or citizenship or anything? I could not see anywhere like they ask, they're gonna tell you like for the international candidate, we have the work permit visa or something like that. So I'm just wondering like,
So you're saying that when you look at Canadian job postings,
yes,
they want immigrant documents?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying? Okay. Yes. So there's a couple of things you can do. One of them is you can write to the employer And if you feel you qualify for the job, I would call or email them, because if there are no other candidates, right, they may consider yours. What it is it's the process that it takes for the paperwork, right? If you're not a landed immigrant. Okay. So I think it's very popular in the U.S. and I don't know, I mean, I have relatives and friends who have gone through that process and they're able to get there on their working card, but then once that job is done, they have to leave or reapply, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I think every 3 years they just renew it, and like in the second half you have to apply for your green card, like permanent residency. And once you have it, then probably you can work forever. But yeah, it's right now it's kind of very difficult to get.
Okay. Well, I'll look into that, into other options like landed immigrant or not landed immigrant. I know that we have student visas, so I'll see if there's temporary work visas or something that you can apply for.
Okay.
The other thing you can do is it's usually up to the employer though. Immigration doesn't really participate or help with that because it's done via the employer. Yeah. And this is Kartik?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll remember from my emails.
All right.
Or if we can post it somewhere and we'll send it to everybody so everyone is aware of it.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So if there aren't any other questions, we can wrap up this meeting for this. Oh, I think there's something there. Someone just put something into the chat. If everyone wants to look there. Yes, this is correct. So you've already applied for the CIPS designation, and I applied to APEX as per. Okay, good. So Harsh Kumar, do you want to send me an email? Because we will have to look at your particular situation. So what happened was, yes, Saskatchewan Immigration changed the certificate requirement for the NOC 2173. And I think it's two parts. There's a software engineer if you're applying, or a software designer. If you're a software engineer, you have to apply to APEX, which is the engineering group. And if you're a software designer, you can still apply to CIPS. So you'd have to ask immigration, because if you're applying as a software engineering, yes, they changed it to APEX. Does that help answer your question? Okay, great. And we do apologize for that. They, after they did more research, they changed it on us. And we're still in the process of seeing the people that did apply under the old application and their old requirements where they could apply to CIPS as a software engineer, and we're trying to see if those can still be honored, but we haven't heard back from them yet.
Any other questions? Maria, do you want to do the wrap up then?
Sure. One thing I think I need to ask you, Doug, is I know we recorded this. Are we making it available?
Yeah, I'll do like we did last time. Is I'll dump it into Dropbox and send you the link to it.
Okay, and then I'll forward it to the group.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So as you just heard Doug and I talk about, so we did decide to record this session, and Doug will send me the link and I will forward it to you in an email. But we just want to thank you for participating, and just don't forget to email us for any questions you may have so that we can help you with either while you're in the process of immigrating or once you get here to Saskatchewan. So we thank you again for your participation, and thanks to the committee for getting up this morning and stepping in on this phone call. For us, it's all just before we go to work to our other jobs. Okay, so everyone, thanks. Have a good day. And thanks, Doug, for facilitating this conference call.
Yep, my pleasure. Have a good day, everyone.
Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.